The Concord Coachmen. You've heard of them, I'm sure. Perhaps you've even seen them performing at one of the multiple events that they attend each year, such as Laconia's or Epsom's Old Home Days, or at the Deerfield Fair. Maybe you've even had the pleasure of attending one of their annual concerts at the Concord City Auditorium. But what do you really know about them? That's what I thought. While you probably know that they've been around for a while and love to perform for audiences big and small, there's much, much more to these coachmen than just that. In order to understand who these Concord Coachmen are and why they were formed, we first need to know about the organization under which they were chartered. While the parent society was originally called the Society for the Preservation and Encouragement of Barbershop Quartet Singing in America, or simply by the acronym SPEBSQA, we shall refer to them as the Barbershop Harmony Society, or BHS. So let's drop back in time a few years to see how this all started.
Some say it was an accident. Some say it was fate. Either way, or perhaps of both, the movement we now enjoy as the Barbershop Harmony Society can be credited to a meeting in Tulsa organized by Owen Clifton Cash on October 11, 1938. In the late 1930s, the family unit was still very musical, with pianos in most homes and singing still a popular pastime. Many could still remember firsthand enjoying the old vaudeville quartets and the professionals such as the Peerless Quartet from the turn of the century. The love of close harmony existed even though it was no longer the most popular music of the day. In 1938, men harmonizing together had not completely died out, but it was becoming rarer and certainly much less popular than 30 years before. Cash was really only interested in getting a few guys together to sing. There was no grand plan, no grand scheme. He and acquaintance Rupert Hall had a chance meeting in Kansas City several weeks before and discussed forming a song fest. On his return to Tulsa, Cash drafted an invitation and mailed it to 14 singers he knew might show up and encouraged them to bring guests to the Tulsa Club, a high-class place and popular destination for special dinners, weddings, and meetings. The date was set for Monday, April 11 at 6:30. Hall, a member of the opulent Rich Oil Men's Tulsa Club, had arranged for the meeting to be held on the roof garden, up on the roof in open air, under the stars. Cash states that he had invited 14 men, and 26 crashed the party. They sang and harmonized to some old songs for several hours, with several breaking off into quartets as well. Apparently, some of Tulsa club members on the floors below complained of the noise. So the next week, April 18, they met at the Hotel Tulsa. 70 men showed up at the second meeting, showing that there was an interest in this idea and maybe an early indication of the future growth. By the end of May, the newly formed group began meeting at the Alva Plaza Hotel and hosting 75 to 100 men each week. What would later be known as the Tulsa No. 1 chapter would continue to meet at the Alvan for 37 years.
We have fast-forwarded now to the year 1956, where, back in the fall, a group of 5 New Hampshire state employees, spearheaded by Stanton H. Young, began organizing a small chorus of men who enjoyed singing together in the old barbershop style. Wishing to be a part of the much larger Barbershop Harmony Society, an application was soon sent to the BHS requesting to be chartered as an official chapter. The application was quickly approved by the BHS, and on January 2nd, 1957, with the required 25 members needed to create a chapter, the Concord Coachmen became an officially chartered chapter of the Society. Later that same year, on July 26, 1957, they became incorporated in the state of New Hampshire. Interestingly, according to the original 1957 chapter charter, they were originally known simply as the Concord, New Hampshire chapter. The 1958 show program then lists them under the name of Concord Barbershop Chorus. Fast forward to the next show flyer that we have record of from 1967, which finally shows them using the name that we still recognize today, the Concord Coachman Chorus. James B. Jeffrey was the first chorus director, with weekly meetings held at the Concord YMCA. In 1964, meetings were moved to the White Park Recreation Building on High Street until 1976. At that time, the West Street Ward House became their next home, until when, in 2002, the chorus moved rehearsals to the Concord Community Music School at 23 Wall Street in Concord. 9 years later, in 2011, the rehearsal venue was changed to its present location at St. John the Baptist Parish Hall in Allenstown, where they still meet today. Unfortunately, little else is known regarding the actual beginnings of the chorus, as keeping historical records is seldom thought of at the beginning of any endeavor. As the last chapter member, Bob Haynes, passed away in 2012, all that we are left with are memories told by members who joined at a later time, along with a few dusty copies of old documents. However, that doesn't mean that we don't have any historical information. We still have a number of historical documents and photos. But before we get to those, listen to this account written by fellow coachman Joe Hayden regarding what may be the most important position in any chorus, the director.
When I was younger, and even into adulthood, I thought musical directors were mere hand-wavers. I got to sing under a few, however, and began to appreciate their talents. They are unheralded contributors to the world of music. I apologize. The most enduring heroes are the directors of amateur musicians from grade schoolers to adults. They make music and inspire performers of all varieties, not the least of whom are called barbershoppers. Eric Ruthenberg, the Concord Coachman's music director since 1994, is the best of the best. That's an absolute. I could leave it at that, but our chapter historian Brian Riley wanted more and asked me, as the coachman with the most Concord chapter years under his belt, to fill in some holes preceding Eric's arrival. When I joined the Concord Coachman in 1979, the Society for the Preservation and Encouragement of Barbershop Quartet Singing in America was just over 40 years old itself, and the Coachmen were on the cusp of celebrating their 20th anniversary. Bob Richardson had become our musical director a few years earlier, having succeeded Warren Emily. Bob came from a family well established in New Hampshire barbershop circles. Brothers Bob, John, and Al were sons of a Laconia musician who may well have been one of the first New Hampshireites to take up the hobby. In early days, many, if not most of the available barbershop-style arrangements had been created on the fly or woodshedded. Bob was a talented composer and the most enthusiastic student of his father's barbershop arrangements. On his shoulders, the Lakes Region Chordsmen chapter of the Barbershop Harmony Society was formed, with Bob Richardson ultimately as director. But in 1957, Southerners, Concord area members of the Lakes Region Chordsmen, decided to strike out on their own and charted the Concord Coachman Chorus. The fledgling chorus had 2 directors in the first years, followed by a Concord physician, and when medicine pulled Doc Emily away, Bob Richardson temporarily stepped back in. He stayed more than 5 years. It seems incomprehensible now, but under Bob Richardson there was 0 use of media and recording devices for learning music. Bob, the consummate musician, taught notes week in and week out with the occasional assist of a piano and the few guys who could read music, in particular Bob's musical scratchings. Our songbook was generously populated with his handwritten arrangements. Others of us learned by ear and practiced by diligent repetition. But worst, Bob was first and foremost a composer, arranger, and mind changer. And keeping up with his frequent rewrites was a truly daunting task for us non-readers. When Bob wearied of the commute down to Concord and surely of slow learners like me, he left us to again direct his home chapter. Then the chorus went through a painful 10-year period of director tryouts. They tried us out and they left. Those who stayed on more than a year did so more out of a love of barbershop, I'm sure, than love of teaching us. Notable among the longer-term interim directors in this period was Walt Jones. Walt was almost as imposing a figure as Richardson and barely more tolerant of slow learners. He was blunt, marine, believed in withering eye contact, but he was also a talented barbershop director. He moved us up the musicality scale, helped by then-growing availability of learning cassettes from our society and the resultant confidence building among chorus members. Incidentally, Walt's 2 adult sons sang competitively with their father at the same time, and as they grew into the hobby, tried their hand at directing. Steve Jones directed the Yankee Clipper Chorus in Portsmouth, New Hampshire, for almost the entire period between the legendary Jim Dodge's retirement and the ultimate folding of the Portsmouth chapter. Back in Concord, a couple of novice directors then took up the challenge, both of whom had tremendous senses of humor, finally, thank goodness, and enough barbershopping experience and an enthusiasm to carry the coachmen through periods of institutional insecurity. We talked often of folding our tent. One, George Roberts, was an old-time showman at heart and helped us set and pursue performance goals. He also sang in quartets with a number of us, fostering a period of active ensembles that flourished and actually competed. I regretted that I came into George's aura too late to sing with his Parts and Labor Quartet, a knowing barbershop quartet handle that still brings a smile to my face.
As you can see, a good director is an absolute necessity for a chorus, and a great director is worth his weight in gold. Once becoming a chartered chorus on January 2nd, 1957, they decided to hold a show for the public, which was held at the Capitol Theater in Concord. The featured quartet was the Sacarapa Yappers from Portland, Maine. The very next year, their second show was held at the Concord City Auditorium, where tickets were being sold for a whopping $1.50 each. The 1956 international champions, the Confederates from Memphis, Tennessee, were the headliners. It's amazing to think that a chorus only 2 years old was able to share a show at home with former national champions. Headliners were the Four Statesmen, who became Barbershop's international champion quartet in 1967. This year's show featured the Four Rascals, who between 1963 and 1966 earned 4 consecutive medals in the International Quartet Contest, rising as high as second place. Both of these shows featured the Boston Common, which was a much-beloved quartet who became Barbershop's international champion quartet in 1980. Our 39th annual show was originally scheduled for Sunday, November 1st. However, there was a bomb scare and we were prevented from going on as scheduled. After much negotiation, the show was finally presented on January 17th, 1999. The Coachmen are still holding annual shows to this day, and while you've just been presented with a small splattering of our show flyers, there are many more to be seen on our website. All available flyers can be seen by visiting us at concordcoachman.org, navigating to the About tab, and clicking on History. There you can find the links to view all of our flyers, along with many other photos of the chorus and our quartets. And lest we forget, it must be noted that for a barbershop show to be successful, you must have a good master of ceremonies to keep the audience both entertained and informed throughout the show. Those duties were magnificently performed by Joe McManus almost every year from 1968 until 2008. Well, there you have it, a somewhat brief overview of the history of the Concord Coachmen. Just like any other organization, we've had good times and we've had lean times, but we're still here doing what we love to do best: entertain our audiences by singing barbershop harmony. We are an all-inclusive men's barbershop chorus who sings four-part harmony of many of your favorite songs, be they old or new, and are always looking for new singers. So why not stop by some Thursday evening to meet us and join us in song? Whether you choose to visit us to sing or just to sit back and listen, you'll never be pressured to do anything that you're not comfortable with. Also, no auditions are necessary, as we'll be thrilled to teach you everything you need to know about singing. So why not come and visit a great bunch of guys some Thursday evening for a fun night of camaraderie and song at our rehearsal facility at St. John the Baptist Parish Hall at 10 School Street in Allenstown, almost every Thursday evening from 7 to 9. We look forward to your visit and sharing with you this joy that we call barbershop harmony.